Stand clear.
100% Wild podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, powered by DeerCast. You, sir, are Matt Drury.
You're Tim Chelswick, and we have a special in-studio guest today, Mr. Kyle McClellan, World Series champion Kyle McClellan, and more importantly, the new host of the Chatterbox, the Cardinals official podcast.
Yes.
Look at you.
Well, you know, every once in a while you stumble across something nice that you get to take over and take and run with.
So
What the hell happened to my soundboard?
We're screwed. We don't have
This is
soundboard.
what happens when I show up.
Oh, man.
Whoa, man. Hey, Matt, my soundboard's not, that's
Okay.
I had a perfect point to put in. I'm a big boy now.
And you are. It's true.
try it again.
And I'm a big boy.
That was a long way to go.
That's what
to
you've
get
been
to
waiting
it.
for.
Yeah.
Something you could have said yourself. It's you saying it on the recording.
Yeah.
It's different, though.
It's better coming from
Yeah.
Yes.
It was good. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kyle's stumbled across a few decent things in his life.
Yes.
Mostly Bridget.
Yeah. that would be the top. Yep.
You know, my wife is completely unimpressed by everything that we do, but was it back last February? We were having dinner together and we were leaving, and she was like, "So what does Kyle do?" And I said, "He pitched for the Cardinals," and she lost her freaking mind.
A little too
She's
late.
like, "You could have told me that before we had dinner."
That was at the team dinner?
Yeah. She didn't care. She hasn't cared about anything, but the dinner with Kyle was
unimpressed about the team. The
Yeah,
fact
right.
that the Drury Outdoors team was there. In fact, it was she had
extremely
to go.
unimpressed by you. She went out of her way to say that.
She could be one of many. Join the
Very
club.
boring.
Jamie.
Disappointing women.
Boring dinner talk. Yeah.
Yeah, disappointed women's my specialty.
That's what I do. But yeah, then she was pissed at me for not going through Kyle's accolades there at the dinner table, which
Doesn't
is always
matter,
great.
Beth.
Right. Would you have treated him better or something?
The life of a ball player or the farmer ball player.
Yeah. Former.
Yeah. So
Better when it was current.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know, you live not far from here and you stop into the studio from time to time. Anybody that's followed you, your career, not just from the baseball standpoint, but when you retired, you really jumped into several things. Brace for Impact, your charity organization that you and Bridget run, and the important work you do there. And we can chat about that. But also you started jumping in the hunting side with us at Drury Outdoors. You had done a few hunts with Mark, through the years, and then had a little extra time on your hand, and you bought a farm, through the playing days there. So your interest in hunting, I think, really, you always had it, but it really started to peak through those next couple of years, right?
You know, hunting and baseball line up perfectly. I think that's why so many guys do it.
Yeah.
Because the off season, like you get out of the season and mentally you're fried. You know, you've been through 162 game season, postseason, whatever it is. And you kind of want that escape, and hunting provides that. Kind of lets you get out and kind of have your quiet time, kind of reflection time, get away from everything, and so yeah. I mean, I had never, I didn't grow up hunting, never hunted before, and when I got into pro ball, I had some roommates of mine, and we went skeet shooting, and it was the first time I'd really been around it. Really enjoyed it. My brother-in-law was a big duck hunter, so I came home that off season. Was like, hey man, I've been doing some shooting. I want to go duck hunting. Started doing that, and I actually met Mark and Terry at a 3D shoot from Jeff Murphy, the bullpen catcher, had, and it was 2008, and I just got a bow and started shooting, and so went out there, and a lot of guys on the team were hunters, and sat there and talked with Mark and had no clue who he was, no clue. And we're talking to him about, I invited him to duck hunt with me. He was like, I've never duck hunted. I goes, I deer hunt every day. I'm like, man, this guy's weird. Every day? He's like, every day. I was like, okay. Well, then so then like shortly after I see him on the Outdoor Channel, I was like, that's the guy I just, chatted with. And then come to find out he's a pretty big deal.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. So
it's about like Beth.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's exactly
Somebody
what
would
it
have
was.
told
I
me.
treated him so poorly. I wish I hadn't.
But he invited me there. He goes, we'd love to have you out to have your first hunt with us, on camera. And so, we did that. And me and Tim Siegler, who filmed for me, We totally butchered made every mistake you can make.
Tim still does.
Yeah. We had a good deer, right? I mean, 10 yards, and we totally messed it up. And so didn't get anything done that year. I ended up killing a doe on my own. And I was all excited about it. And then that year went back and harvested my first buck on camera. And from there I was in, like you said, bought my own farm up there in Pike County, Illinois. And it was hard when you play, it takes a lot of time to have a farm ready to go for hunting season. So I had some great people help me with it. And when I got done, those were one of the things I was looking forward to, is going up there, spending that time, more time with my family up there, and getting it ready to roll. So it just, that baseball season and hunting really worked out perfect to where we were able to have some great memories up there.
How many years was there overlap where you had the farm and you were still playing? I know after the Cardinals, you went down to the Texas Rangers for a couple of years there as well.
Yeah, so I bought it in 2011. And then we won the World Series that year.
Yep.
And funny story about that. So we win the World Series. The next morning, I want to go hunting. And so I pick up the phone and I call Matt Drury. And I was like, hey, I need a camera guy.
Like literally the next morning.
It's like 10 o'clock.
Matt Drury was hungover.
and
Matt Drury was out till like 6 a.m.
Matt goes, why are you calling me? And I go, I want to go hunting. It's my farm. It was my first time I could hunt on my farm. I was like, I want to go. And I've missed a month.
Yeah.
I want to go. And he was like, I partied like I won the World Series. Why are you not hungover right now? And I was like, well, I want to go hunting. So I ended up hunting that day. And find somebody to film for me. But so we had it in 11 and 12, and then 13, I went to the Rangers, and then I was done. So it was like 3 years of my playing time. Yeah. And then when I got done, really had an understanding of the farm, what was going on, and then could really do all the things on my own. Because part of it's doing it on your own, You can have somebody do it for you like I had to, and show up and it's ready to hunt. And that's great. But man, going out and doing it, planning it, changing things that you want to change, and doing it the way you want to do it is all the, that's even better.
That boots on the ground, the MRI, you sitting there, you hunting it and understanding the way the deer move or what the property does. And that's the fun part about figuring out, okay, I need to switch my food plots. I need to put my blinds here, my stands there. And what I've always admired about you, no matter what you do, you jump in and you go all in on it, and so, those first few years especially, I mean, that was a huge focus for you. You'd come in, you kind of talk strategy and look at trail cameras and all that stuff. And you just went all in on the property, and really you got it set up to where, you could take the kids out there and you guys could succeed, and, you're bringing them into the lifestyle, and you guys are spending, a lot of time out there in the summertime, and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. And it evolves, right? I mean, you're in different life phases. So it evolves to where you're up there all the time. Your kids don't know any better. You put them in the truck and you go to the kids want to go to the kids are hunting. And now, like, I always, before I had kids, it was like, you hear everybody say like, I'd rather watch my kid, hunt than me hunt. And I'm like, I'll never get to that point. I mean, I want to be the one hunting. And then you go up there with your kids and you're like, this is awesome. I mean, last year I hardly hunted myself, because the days that we got, I pretty much guided them, and took them up and got to be there. And, is just, it is really, I'll never forget my son. It was a deer I hunted all year, never saw him, and got a trail cam picture of him on like December 21st. He came back, and the neighbor had asked me if I had seen something similar, so I knew he had probably been hit. He shows back up. He's got a limp, and I know he's going to stay on me because I got the food. He shows back up the 23rd, and I look at the weather, and I'm like, babe, Christmas Eve, like, he's going to be there. Do we have anything? It was the COVID year. We weren't getting together family. So we went up, and here he comes. My son harvests him 141-inch 9-pointer, first deer.
So awesome.
First deer he's ever killed. And to be there, and I just remember driving home being like, man, this is, tracking with him, everything. I got all the trail cam pictures of us walking by the camera. It's like 3 degrees out. It's freezing cold. He's bundled up and he could care less, and those are just some of the cool moments where it takes you a while to figure it out to where you can get it like that, to where, you can take the kids up there. And I try to pick the good days, right? Like, you're not going to take them out there on a marginal day and have them sit out there and not really know what's going to happen. You try to pick the good ones, and it's a lot of fun when you see them get fired up about it.
You know, and Rhett, he's ate up with it.
Yeah.
Like I always get a kick out of all your pictures up there, because whether you guys are fishing, he's got a big 10-gallon cowboy hat on. He's wearing cowboy boots and shorts.
Yeah.
And
The life.
he loves it at the farm. You can just tell.
Yeah, you get up there. I mean, the shed door's open. He's pulled every tractor out, every buggy, everything, and he's riding it around. You know, he really does. We fish up there, you know, and it's just been a really great experience and family memories. You know, I grew up, my grandpa had a 40-acre farm, and we went up there once a weekend for the whole year.
Wow.
And I still have so many memories of that place. And so the fact that my kids are going to have that is awesome.
And you talked about kind of the evolution of life, of where you're at in life. We were chatting on the phone the other day, and you said, you know, you're kind of a phase behind. You're a phase behind where I was at. You know, your kids are now in youth sports and growing up, and you know, youth sports is just crazy how much time it takes out of the weekends and travel ball or whatever. So, you know, you're kind of at that next level, aren't you? The next phase. Yeah,
we're actually. I was talking to you about. We're actually listing our farm, which is like painful. You know, it was a tough decision. So for like 2 years, we kind of went on, you know, paying attention to like, we're at a different phase, you know, like my daughter's 11, my son's 8. She plays competitive soccer and softball. He plays football, baseball, basketball. And so I wanted to watch and see, are they really in on it? Because if they're in on it, we need to make time for it. And in watching in the last 2 years, they're in on it. Yeah. And so last year became harder to get up there. Through the summer, we have 2 open weekends from March until July. And so, you know, we're going to go there on one of those open times to the farm for a few days, but it's just, we're not using it the way that I envisioned it, the way that we wanted to. And maybe it's time to go make memories in other places. And it might be at the ball field, you know, like I have great memories of the ball field. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different phase of life. And so we actually broke the news of the kids last night. Rhett cried. You know, Olivia was upset. So we had a long talk last night at bed, and just trying to get them to understand, like, mom and dad are making the decision best for the family. And we're going to have other great experiences, and you're going to remember those things. And we have I've said this many times, I've filmed for Drury Outdoors since 2008. And to be able to go back and grab those memories and to always have that hunt with my son, you know, I mean, that is, if anybody out there listening doesn't film your hunts, I don't care if it's just with like the most basic anything, do it, you know, just do it. Just put a camera in the blind. Doesn't have to be anything extravagant. You don't have to have a cameraman. Just do something to capture that and store it, because I'll always have those memories. You know, just the B-roll, like us walking as a family with a drone flying over. Like, man, those are things that, you know, we'll never forget. And so it's tough, but I think it's the right decision for us. The farm deserves it too. You know, like the farm deserves to have somebody that's going to enjoy it and take care of it the way it should. And if I can't do that, you know, somebody else needs to do it. You know, and the reality is, like, the youth sports that we've talked about it on the podcast before, it's such a tough thing because, you know, I see it with Cameron's finally starting to get to the age where he's starting to just dabble in some, you know, rec type sports, you know, flag football and
badminton.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you see it, they like being with their friends. It's not necessarily the sport or that they're great at the sport. They like being with their friends and all their friends are in it. Yep. And the reality of our situation, unfortunately, is that there's not a lot of people that have a farm or a grandpa's farm anymore or anywhere to go. And that lifestyle just isn't overly present in their friend. You know, you don't see it unless you're living in a rural community, which the three of us really are not. I mean, we're in the suburbs of St. Louis here, and all three of us, and you just don't see it where the priority is to go there because where are their friends at? You know, Cameron's in Cub Scouts, and I see it. We're starting to get conflicts between scouting events and ball games. And now, you know, some of the other boys are like, yeah, we're going to go to the ball games, Scouts. Well, hey, I was in Scouts. I wish he'd go and become an Eagle Scout and do the whole thing. But if he's not in it, into it because his friends are all in something else, you gotta let him kind of be a kid. You do. And then the hard part is you got she's in softball and soccer and they compete for the same seasons. Yeah. So soccer wants you in the fall and the spring. Softball in the spring is a primary. In the fall, they're doing fall ball and getting ready for the next year. And so then it's tough because you're you know, not only that, you know, are you trying to find time to go there? Well, you're trying to find time between the two sports to get them both in. And so, you know, it's a challenge. Youth sports have changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years, really.
And you know, I don't fault it. I don't knock it. I mean, the kids now, I look at the kids now, development wise, are way ahead of where we were. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they have more opportunity and offer. The facilities are better, you know, and you just got to make sure they're in on it, you know, and they want to do it. And that's why we've kind of watched from afar for the last 2 years, just seeing, you know, where they're at. And then Rhett's right at the beginning of it. He's 8, you know, we're getting into more competitive baseball. Football is going to become, you know, tackle football here in a couple of years. And then, you know, the basketball is going to be, you know, we had 5 games in the spring, you know, so some of these sports, they never give you that big break, and you're always trying to intertwine them. But yeah, and Rhett's brought some friends up to the farm. Olivia's had some friends up there, and we try to do that, and they love it. I mean, to watch Rhett, he had his buddy up there a couple weeks ago. We shed hunted, and probably in February, March, and I mean, he was showing them everywhere, all his favorite spots on the farm. We stayed the night,
Big
we
stuff,
fished,
right?
you know, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
You know, so it more than anything, it helps you get to expose more kids and parents and families to that lifestyle and the things that, you know, we've enjoyed for so long.
The other complexity is trying to not project your own desires on your kids. Like, I really want you to kill a turkey this spring, or I really want this for you. And you have to give them some, you know, obviously some encouragement, but also give them some freedom to be themselves and follow their own path.
It's tough because you know, just purchased a piece of property, and we did all this work to the house. I did it so they would want to come there. And I think they do want to come there, but we just haven't been there much. They haven't been there much. I'm there once a week, it seems like, and it's a lot of work, you know, and you're like, God, man, so far it's not living up to my expectations, but I can't push them. You know, it's an hour and a half away, and it's rained so much this spring, like literally every weekend, it seems like it's raining. If you have an available weekend where it's not raining and you don't have something already in the books, you're just like, hey, can we sneak up there? You know, and it's just like, God, I want it to be more organic. And, you know, Cameron, he came up for turkey season, and he's like, by the end of it, loved it. He wants to go there all the time now. Lola hadn't had that chance yet. And I think if I could just get them there and start making the memories, we'll get to where you're at there, where they want to go.
Yeah. And it's also important, as they're making the memories, to tell them you're making memories right now.
Remember these memories.
Remember this. This will be a fun memory for you.
You know, that it's the things at the farm now, when we were talking, like reflecting on the farm last night, it's the little things. It's my grandpa had an old truck bed that he turned into a trailer, like a little wagon. And I remember sitting on the back of that, dangling my feet off the back on the gravel road, going from one pond to the other behind his big Ford tractor, you know, and going and catching frogs. Like, I remember all that. Well, I have that trailer at the farm, and I keep it in the shed, you know, like I don't want it to be outside. I keep it in the shed protected, and he's got the wooden benches that he puts in there. It's all handmade. And so we hooked that up to the tractor, and we go down, and we used to go visit the cows, and they remember that. Like, I remember going to visit the cows, you know, just driving the tractor down the road. And it's those things, it's the things you don't expect, I think, that come out of it. You know, like the hunting and the fishing, those are the obvious, but it's those other little things. It's the campouts we had in the living room, you know, laying out, that they remember having those at night, and, you know, sleeping out in the living room and doing those types of things. So it's all those other little smaller things that you can't anticipate, I think, that really sticks out with those kids. And, you know, I would say, man, just take pictures, you know, take pictures. And I can go back through my farm folder on my phone, and it's got 800 pictures of, you know, almost every fish they've caught and everything. And you feel like it's overboard. All the campfires we had and catching fireflies and all that, you know, is just, it's just cool to have it documented.
You never regret that stuff.
No.
So, all right, looking ahead, say that, you know, the farm, obviously you're listing it for a reason. So say it sells.
It's haunted.
What next for Kyle? You know, what next for hunting for you?
I think I'm, you know, I have a buddy that just bought a property, and he offered me he's never hunted, offered me to come over and try to help him get it set up. And it's 20 minutes from my house, you know, so I think just kind of see where that void is this year, see what I'm missing. Maybe we go through and don't even realize it. You know, maybe we're so busy, and it's just one of those things that it's like, man, hunting season's here, and it's a cold front, and I'm not thinking about being in a tree stand. I don't think that will happen. But you know, I want to give my kids what they need, you know, and so if it's getting them to practice, and you know how it is, you're up there, you leave at noon, You get up there, you get in the stand, you're sitting there, kids are off school, one's got practice here, another's got practice there. You feel guilty because you're sitting up there, you're not seeing anything. So, just kind of feel it out and see what our schedule provides. But I think I love the hunting side. I love the outdoor side. I love the food plotting and the prepping. So I would imagine I'll find somewhere closer to home that's more convenient that we can go and still have some of those experiences.
Yep. Good.
And Kyle, I've always wanted to ask you, just as a major league pitcher, when you started approaching archery, because pitching just seems like it's just so technical. There's such a mindset to it. What of that, if any, carried over into learning to shoot the bow, and what still remains?
Well, I think I would shoot quite a bit. I think I'm used to mastering my craft, right? Like going out and repeating my mechanics and doing the same thing. So I would shoot quite a bit and get dialed in and just try to repeat that over and over and over and over again. Then it's very similar to, you can throw all the bullpens you want, but that game speed is a little different, So then the hunting side, when I first started, man, I was frustrating because it was like, man, I shoot so good at the target, but then when there's a deer out there, that's a totally different. I panicked and I shot, and I didn't even know I don't even know if I was looking through my peep. I was like
blacked out.
Yeah, I just don't even know. So going through that process, the hard thing is that might only happen twice a year, once a year, once every couple of years. I mean, you don't get very many opportunities. So, but no, I think just the attention to detail, the repeating, mechanics, and then I think the perfection of it, like if I'm going to go out there and shoot, or if I'm going to food plot, I want to master that food plot to where I'm going to have the best opportunity at the best shot. I don't want to be taking an 80-yard shot. I got to get it in here and get it dialed in. And so I think just having that mindset is very similar.
One of the things that's always amazed us, because we've, had a chance to meet a few ball players over the years, it's the hand-eye coordination and the correlation that comes, the eyesight, the hand-eye coordination. They can all shoot really well. Like, it's amazing how that, the athleticism shines through in the sport of archery too for you guys.
Yeah. And I remember, the maybe second deer I harvested, Tim was filming. We were in a box blind, and the deer came out of a totally opposite side that we thought, and we had to move all our gear and get situated. I got a cramp in my hamstring because I'm down on my knee trying to turn around, and my cramp. And it's this is the biggest deer I've ever shot, 168-inch, whitetail. And I remember on that video, your dad said, he's like, it amazes me, these athletes and their ability, their hand-eye and their ability, their athleticism to be able to do it. Like, and I think for us, that's probably our advantage, is like, things don't go right, we can adapt and we don't have to be standing, perfectly balanced. We can kind of make a lot of those because we made our living, being balanced and doing awkward things in positions. And so it does, I think, help to be able to adjust, not get flustered mentally, and just do what you got to do to make the shot.
Tommy always says, slow the game down, slow the game down. And that's, Mark uses that phrase all the time.
Very similar.
It's true.
I've made a career out of doing awkward things.
Yeah.
And it's
saying the awkward thing.
It's not.
Got one right now.
It's not related to any kind of success for me, unfortunately. Maybe I just need to keep pushing in on that.
Maybe. Huh. Yeah. It's strange.
This is awkward right now.
Welcome to the podcast.
You're succeeding.
Just wait till the wildlife word.
So, hey, listen, I wanted you to come in because of the timing, you're getting ready to launch this new venture called the Chatterbox, a podcast. Chatter's Box. Sorry, for Cardinals specifically, Major League Baseball, the Cardinals specifically. It's their official podcast, and you're the host. You got a bunch of cool guests that you've lined up. You've already done several of the interviews. Kind of take us through, launching this thing and how did it even come about, frankly.
So I've done radio for the Cardinals and KMOX ever since I got done. A lot of pregame stuff, and it's fine. I told them when I did it, look, I'm in Haiti for a week at a time doing our charity stuff. I'm at the farm hunting. Like, I can't give you I can't come to the studio. I'm not driving downtown St. Louis every day to do, a 7-minute hit. And so I said, we can make it easy and do it on phone. It was great, but you can only, on pregame, you can only say, well, the pitchers need to keep the ball down. They need to get ahead. Hitters need to swing good pitches, and defense needs to make the plays. You can only say that so many times. And so where I think my value, and you can get anybody to say that, my value as a former player and the relationships I hold with the players is that sit down type interview. And so I would go to spring training every year because we had a place down there, and we would spend 3 months down there, and I would just go get interviews on my own, just one for practice and two just to get it, to show what I could do. And I got Adam and Yachty 2 years ago together, and Adam Wainwright and Yachty, and they've never done an interview together as far as I've known. I haven't seen,
which is strange.
I haven't seen a sit down interview. Maybe they've done like
something quick,
like a couple minutes.
But like Baseball Tonight or something like that, you'd think that they would have done this.
Yeah, and it's just hard. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Yachty who's catching every day. The last thing he wants to do is sit down or get there early to do an interview. Adam's, doing all these other things. So it took me 3 years to get the interview. And just because in spring training, those two guys are the busiest guys because they're the mentors.
And working with Adam a lot, right. I understand why it took 3 years.
It was actually more Yachty than Adam. Because Adam, I would go to Adam and he would say, you tell him whatever time's good for Yachty will be good. So I go to Yachty, he said, be here at this time. Well, I'd be there. And then he came in like 30 minutes later. He was like, sorry, I got caught in the cage. I was like, look, man, that's what you're here for. Like, you need to be working with those younger guys in the cage. Yeah. Don't worry about it. So it just didn't work out, and maybe for the better. So we finally get the interview, we do it, and the Cardinals never released it, KMOX did. And so I was telling some of the Cardinal people this year at Fantasy Camp in January, it's the first year they were going to have me back. COVID, I took a 2-year break. And I said, I don't know if you saw my Adam and Yachty one, but I'd really like to do more like that. So I kind of planted a few seeds. And so they called me a week before the season and said, we're having you back, and we want you to take our podcast. We're going to try a podcast, and we want you to take it and run with it. It's yours. We don't care about episodes. We don't care about how much money we make. Like, we just want it. We just want you to take it and run with it, and we'll see what happens. And so I sat down and I said, okay, I want to break this into series. So, I don't just want to do random. I want to break it series. So if you're into the current team, you can click on that and you can listen to all those interviews. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a Gold Glove series. If you really like defense, or, you can click on that and you can listen to all those. We're going to do the 82 team because it's their 40-year reunion this year. If that 82 team was your team, you can click on that, listen to all the episodes. The last one, we're still waiting to see what that series is going to be. But we're starting off with a big one, Albert Pujols.
Yeah.
So he came in, and the Cardinals told me I had 20 minutes with him. And I said,
can't do anything in 20 minutes for a podcast.
I said, Albert came in, and I said, Albert, they said I have 20 minutes with you. And he said, okay. And I said, I can't do 22 years of a Hall of Fame career in 20 minutes. He goes, what do you need? I said, I need 3 different, I'd like to do the early years before you came to the U.S. or right when you came to the U.S. Then I like to do your prime. And then I want to do leaving and coming. Yeah. And I need a half hour of each. And he was like, cool, I'll do an hour on Monday with you. So we did 24 minutes, and it ended with his first day of spring training.
Nice.
And then I cut it there, and then he came back. We did 71 minutes, and it ended up being mostly prime. Not a whole lot of leaving and coming, because I looked down. We were 37 minutes in. We were in like 2004, and I was like, "Whoa, I gotta get going." I was like, here. "So you won a World Series? No 6. That's cool. Let's go to forward. Let's move through some of these." So it was really cool. And look, I got to play with him for 4 years, and that's a guy. Like, I will tell my grandkids stories of playing with him, right, and things I got to see him do, and so that was a cool experience. But sitting there and interviewing him in this depth and style, I could tell he enjoyed it. And I just caught myself thinking, like, this is really cool. Like, to be on this side, to be the one interviewing him. And so that's going to be our first one that's going to drop. And then we're going to do the Yachty Waino one's going to drop. It was 2 years ago, but it's still relevant, because what I did is I walked them through chronologically their career together. And so it's still relevant to today's time frame. And then I did Ollie Marmol, the new manager, for 31 minutes. We'll go the next day. And then we're going to take a break and then come back. We're going to try to release in the middle of each month that new series. And so we're working on some. So
how many series? I guess there's not a set number of series or number of episodes per series.
So
is there?
No, and I want to go the Gold Glove one. We had ideas, and we're up against availability of current guys, which is hard schedule wise. So I feel like we're really kind of like, there's a homestand that goes by, we don't hear anything. We're like, man, now we got to wait for a whole road trip, come back and hope that somebody can come do it. A couple of the guys we were hoping to get, I was trying to get all 5 Gold Glovers that won last year, which is the first time it's ever happened. But also what I want to do is, look, the Cardinals have a rich history. And so I want to connect those generations in every podcast if possible, or series. So if Harrison Bader and Tommy Edman aren't your jam with the current team, but you grew up in the 70s watching, and somebody that won a Gold Glove in the 70s or Keith Hernandez in the 80s, like, that's who you really relate to. I want to pull those guys in and do a segment with them. And so you have the current Gold Glovers and you have the older Gold Glovers. How has that changed? What did you work on in defense? And so you can listen to that. And then maybe through that, you become a Tommy Edman fan through listening to what you're doing, and you start watching the current games because of that. That would be my hope. So the Gold Glove one, I want it to be deeper. We've had a little issue with availability of some of the guys, and so it might not be as deep as I'd hoped.
Yeah.
But the Cardinals are fine with that. And they said, hey, do what you can here. We'll sit down in September and see if we want to keep this going, which I really hope our numbers are good enough that we do that, because there's so much stuff I want to get into with the history side of the Cardinals. If you go decade by decade, I think it would be really cool to talk about kind of how the Cardinals have gotten to where they are. And there's so many different things we do. And then I'd like to branch out. I'd like to see if we can get Ken Griffey Jr. on. I'd like to see if we can get, non-Cardinal guys, but big names. And I think if we can look, the Cardinals have the fans, right? I think if we give them good content, it's going to go crazy. And that's going to help us even get, better and better guests as we're out marketing this. And my hope is that I believe I heard him say MLB is asking every team to do a podcast. My hope is we'll be number one by far.
Sure.
And then that will be something that will be easier to pull in other people.
When do they actually launch it? Like, when's it launching date wise? Do you know yet?
Yeah, the 31st of May is going to be the first Albert one. Then the 1st of June will be the second one. And then the 2nd of June will be Yadi Ueno. And then the 3rd will be the manager.
So by the time this podcast airs to our listeners, it will have launched.
It'll be out. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
cool.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the show notes so people can get to it.
Yeah. And you can get it on all. Everybody asks, where can you get it? I'll be dead honest with you. I've never listened to a podcast. I've never listened. Cool. I mean, I know you guys have an amazing one. I've done several.
So I hear.
Yeah.
You're right in lockstep with the rest of the team, so you're good.
But I've never, that's just not how I consume my information. Like, I get in my truck, I turn on XM radio on the highway, and I listen to country music or the Garth channel or whatever. At night, I turn on either live sports or the First 48 and watch murder mysteries. That's that's pretty much what I do. And so. I was actually playing golf yesterday with Randy Carricker, a radio guy here in St. Louis, and I had no clue I didn't know he moved 2 years ago to a different time slot at ESPN Radio. And that's just not how I do it. But so when I'm doing my wife loves to listen to him. And so she's like, you need to listen to a few before you host them. I said, I want to do my own thing. I go in with no notes. I go in with no notes. I go in with, I just want to have a conversation with the guys and go from there. But I think it's going to be, very interesting, and I want it to be more casual, more, I'm not trying to get any dirty laundry on anybody. I'm just trying to expose these players to the fans in a way that maybe they haven't seen before. And show that these guys are, kind of what they've gone through or what their background is.
Maybe talk a little inside baseball.
There you go.
There you go.
A little locker room talk.
Thought about that one last night.
Great. I wrote it down. Well, and I imagine having been in their shoes that you probably approach them and they probably feel a little bit differently than just being interviewed by some
I know the questions
sports reporter.
Ask. I think I know where to go with the questions, and like with Albert, I lived it. So it was easy for me interviewing some of these other guys in the 82 team. I'm going to have a co-host because I wasn't even born then.
You have to do a little homework,
but I don't want to miss that. So I'm having a co-host, Dave LaPointe, who was on the team. He's hilarious. He'll be a great co-host, but he can pull that out of guys. And I'm doing that because I don't want to miss that. Like, I don't want to miss that May game in Minnesota that I didn't know about, and there was a team fight in the locker room, or I'm not saying there was, but like those things are what really makes this kind of getting that in-depth look into. And so to have that camaraderie with those guys will be great. But like with Albert, for instance, the Brad Lidge moment, right?
Rocked his world.
Before we went into
2005.
Yeah. Before we went into the interview, one of the Cardinals guys that's helping with it, I said, I honestly hadn't even thought about where I wanted the interview to go. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, it's 10 minutes before Albert shows up. I'm like, is there anything you think I need to make sure I hit on? And he was like, the Brad Lidge thing, he never really talks about it. He kind of gives that, I got a good pitch, I put a good swing on it. He goes, I've asked him about it. I know a million people have asked him. I wonder if he would go a little different with you. And so we get to it, and I start talking, and he went on. And he gave some pretty cool insight into that that whole process leading up to it. And then he said something afterwards, because if you ask him, he's like, you're just like it was a cool moment, but it didn't like.
He silenced 50,000, 45.
Well, and he said too,
it is.
because it would have been a lot cooler if we would have won the next day. But we got destroyed the next day.
Sure.
They did at home. It was brutal.
But he said something in that podcast that shows you that was a major moment for his career, and he still thinks about it and enjoys it. And there's something in his story that when he said it, I was like, okay, that's a big deal to you. You know, you might not say it, but because of that, of what you're still doing every time you go back to that place, that's a major part of his career, you know, and he's never forgotten that. And
neither has Houston.
I asked Albert if he was jealous of David Freese, you know, and that to me, I think fans should know that. If he is or not, because that's something that like I've been sitting in the bullpen. They call a guy. I'm like, dang it, man, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to go out in that situation.
Yeah. And you're referring to the 2011, championship run.
Yeah.
And David Freese, hometown St. Louis guy, he came up and he just had a game of all games, and basically he willed us into the final game.
Yeah. Yeah,
Series.
and Albert, and he's the MVP. Yeah. Albert, the one thing Albert doesn't have on his resume is a World Series MVP. And so I asked him that, not in a slap in the face,
sure,
but as a like, hey, as a normal human being, is there any? And he answered, he's like, no. He goes, if you look though, usually it's not the superstar that's the MVP.
Yeah,
we get walked.
David,
they allow
David Eckstein.
Exactly.
You think about these guys, and that same World Series, Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs in a single game. Yeah. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He had a hell of a series. So,
but anybody else asks him that question, he probably walks out.
Yeah,
you know. And so I had it in my head. For 30 minutes, do I ask? And I was like, I just think it's something that, like, I think that's a normal feeling that people should know which way or the other, you know. And he was like, nah. And trust me, I am super happy that David Freese did what he did.
Yeah, you got a ring out of it.
I got a really big ring. And Albert's the same way, but I wanted people to see that, like, when you're on a true team that pulls for each other, and that your goal is a championship, that stuff doesn't play. You know, it's like, hey, I just want to win. And that's ultimately what the kind of the answer he gave. But that's an example of like,
you can get away with something.
Yeah, probably a lot of people couldn't get away with that.
Yeah.
Well,
because he knew where I was coming from.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why people tune in. Like, I think people watch this show because they like some of the behind the scenes information.
Talking about Mark and Terry, or the old year, the golden years of the company, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a unique insight that they get that they probably couldn't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
They're listening to this podcast and thinking the first 10 minutes had hunting on. Then we just went off track. But the reality is, for our company, baseball, especially Cardinal baseball, and our company go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They really are. Mark and Terry and my grandma and grandpa are huge fans, and it's been a part of our company for so long, dating back to maybe even earlier than this, because I know they met Will Clark back in the day when he came over to the Cardinals, and Mike Matheny and all these guys, they struck up a friendship, and it's just kind of the last 15, 20 years they've had a real good connection there at Busch Stadium where the Cardinals play, and it's just a big part of who we are as a family that grew up just south of St. Louis, and KMOX, and hell, you work with them every day. That's the tradition there for the Midwest. I think a lot of listeners could probably relate to that. Turning the dial to KMOX and listening on AM radio. It's a big deal. And so anyways, it intertwines with Drury Outdoors.
Well, and if it wasn't for baseball, I wouldn't be involved. I wouldn't hunt. I wouldn't be involved in the hunting side. And with it, I mean, I've been with Drury Outdoors since, 14 years now?
Yeah.
15, going on 15 years, just because of that relationship. But Mark invited me up 2014, and I hunted with him, and I told him I will, the things I learned, I probably hunted 12 days maybe total. The things I learned in those 12 days, my kids will benefit from.
Oh, yeah.
Like just having that. Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable to see and to be there, and to, he'd walk out of the house and he'd look up, and then he'd be like, clouds, this, that. And he's like, yep, they're going to move it, whatever time. And we get out there, and I'm telling you, I mean, it is like, he does not waste a minute in that stand. No. I mean, we are 2 minutes in,
deer out,
and the deer are out, and then one day you're an hour, later than you were the day before. And you show up, there's no deer in the field. You get in 2 minutes later, here comes the first deer. It's crazy.
He's efficient.
Yeah.
Was there any story from that trip that you, because that was Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were bow hunting up there with him. Any stories from that period? Any mishaps? Any mess ups?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Let's hear about
No pressure.
So Taylor harvested Ranger, right? She ended up harvesting him. Well, that was thankful to me for messing up the year before on him. We had sat, so before that, there was another deer that came up. We were hunting real close to their house, and this deer came out and just totally whiffed them, like just totally missed. And so drive back and then come back up. We were playing the weather fronts, come back up. And so we come out during the rut, and we're sitting in this stand on this beautiful little saddle on top of this ridge. And he was like, he's going to come out from down here if he comes. And so we're all set up, and it would be behind us. And so he comes out in front of us on a doe. And I'm like, Tim, well, there was Ranger and then there was Danger. So Danger, who Mark ended up harvesting, was
big
like
deer.
A 2-year-old or 3-year-old, looked exactly like Ranger, but had like a little bump on like his G2 or 3. And so, when you get out there, Mark,
and that's why it's called Danger.
Correct.
They didn't want him to be
Do
shot.
not shoot him.
Yeah.
And there was one deer that was off limits. And Mark, when you get up there, he's sending you all these trail cam pictures. So I'm sitting there going through my phone, and I'm like,
don't screw up.
Can't I? So I'm like, Tim. So Tim Siegler's filming. I'm like, Tim. And he's like, that's 100% Ranger. I was like, are you 100? Because I will let that deer walk versus shooting the wrong deer.
I will murder you if you screw this up.
So he's like 100% that's him. And so I'm going through pictures and looking, and it's just beautiful footage. He comes out and he walks and he gets 14 yards. And when I had to pull, there was a limb right there, and I had to get up over it. So I had to actually stand and get up, and it was real quiet. And he looked at me, and as soon as he looked, he tucked and run. And so I never got the shot. And so I text Mark and I said, we just spooked Ranger. So I get all these choice words back at me. Well, Wade ended up harvesting that night. And so we're watching the recovery, and the camera stops, and Mark starts going off and yelling. And he was like, that's right, when you texted me that you spooked a Ranger. And I was like, ugh, so you weren't real happy. So then I go back up. It was Green Revisited phase. So it was right after Thanksgiving, I believe. Went back up, met Mark at the gas station, and he's going to film me.
The worst pressure.
So I've missed
exactly what I hope never happens to me.
I've missed one. I've spooked one. And now he's filming me.
And that's why he's filming you.
Yep.
He is.
Well, it was the day after
micromanager,
Thanksgiving, and so I don't know if anybody was available. But we go in there, and it was a place we had hunted before. And we go in, and we're sitting there, and we're in this blind, and deer, he's like, there's your boy right there. He comes out. And it's funny because, the whole phases thing, we hunted that before, and not a single deer even looked at that green. It went straight to the grain. And so Mark's like, we're going to hunt there. I'm like, this is stupid. We're wasting our time. Like, I've hunted that, and they're not going to go. Every deer didn't even look at the grain. They came all right to the green. It was unbelievable. It was like a couple week difference, and the difference of the way they acted. So they all come in. That deer's right there, and Mark's like, shoot him. I can't see him. We're in this box blind. I don't have the same angle. As you know, your cameraman and you have totally different angles sitting, 2 feet apart. And so he's like, shoot. And I'm like, I can't see the deer. And so he leans over and he's like, I see what you're talking about. So we start moving in the blind. This deer's like 15 yards away. So we end up, he comes in, I get the shot, and I put it back farther than I normally would because I had hit one on my farm that year early front, like in the shoulder.
Shoulder shot.
So I'm trying to get off the shoulder, and I go back and I shoot him, and Mark's like, why'd you shoot him so far back? And I'm like, I didn't want to shoot him in the shoulder. So we ended up going Mexican that night, and then went back and recovered him. But it was cool, but it was stressful, man, having Mark filming you. After you've messed up a couple on his farm, I'm like, I'll never get this invite back again.
That says something if a Major League Baseball pitcher is stressed out in a hunting situation. Like, you get thousands of people watching you throw a ball.
Tens of thousands.
It ended up, that deer was a stud, man. It went 166 inches, but when you walk in
the
the
farm,
farm,
mass.
Oh, when you walk in, carried it all the way out. So I killed a 168, but next to each other, he dwarfs that 168. That 168 was kind of a basket, but he had a lot of extra real tall, but he was kind of tucked in. I mean, this one, if you were to draw a 10-pointer,
He was pretty.
he was awesome. And he had some great trail cam pictures of it. Obviously, I mean, of course, he had 7,000 of them.
Knew him from birth.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, it was a cool, that was a trip I'll never forget. And I still, to this day, put in my preference points if old Uncle Mark wants to ever send the invite out again. I'm ready to go. He might be like, in 3 years, like, nope, I can come right now. I'm
ready.
good. I got like 8 preference points. And
I just this year, I hope, fingers crossed, I should have 5 points. He's said I could come up.
There you go.
This will be my first time ever going to Iowa to hunt. And the scenario that you just laid out keeps me up at night. I hope, Scott, are you listening over there? I hope that they don't put Mark with me just from a standpoint of making me nervous. I don't want that at all. Like he could put Wade or Perry or any of the other guys like, hey, that's fine. You know, I won't shoot. I don't care if it's a 200-inch deer. If he says it's a 4-year-old and he's on the no shoot list. I'm used to that. I get that. Don't worry about that.
Take the crossbow.
But I just don't want to mess up. Bad shot. I even told Scott the other day, I usually don't start shooting until July, August.
Sure.
And I was like, this year I'm going to start shooting earlier just to make sure that I'm in prime shape. Because the other thing is he'll look at DeerCast and he'll say, I've seen him do it with you or other guests forever. It's just like, hey, you need to come up tomorrow, today, tonight, whatever. And you got to drop everything and go. And so you better be prepared.
Yeah. He'd be watching. He'd text me and be like, these are the 3 days you need to be here, and it'd be a day or two in advance. You know,
and that was pre-DeerCast days.
Yeah.
So
he was his own DeerCast.
That's right, and that's why they talk about it all the time. But that's why Mark and Terry finally kind of put all these thoughts together into this algorithm and said, you know what? Instead of us having to spend hours figuring it out every day, we'll pump it out in this algorithm and show you when to go.
I mean, I grew up hunting I would text Mark, early on questions. So I feel like I don't need DeerCast because I know what it's going to say. Yeah. Because that 14 days or whatever it was I hunted with them. I mean, I came back and applied that to my farm. And I think what it really helped me with was, on one farm, you might have a couple food plots, whatever, but if you have a day, you're going to go hunt it. And what I think helped me more than anything was I wouldn't hunt it. Yeah. I would not hunt the marginal days and capitalize on the good days. I think that is the one thing I learned more. And that came from, Mark would hunt it, but he would hunt the spot that had the perfect wind, the perfect situation for that.
He'd hunt smart.
And he would wait for, okay, we're only hunting this on a north-northeast, and you might only get it 6 times a year, but we'll kill them but it's going to be one of those 6 days. We are not going in the day before and busting them. And watching that helped me on my place say, because the people say, well, you can't kill them on the couch. Yeah. Well, no, but you can spook them if you're not on the couch. You can scare them away. And so I think that helped me more than anything on that.
We had Kevin Van Dam on last week, and he said that very thing. He's like, man, as much as anything, it's kind of showed me, when I shouldn't be out there and how important that is. And I understand, like, hey, if you only got 10
days to go, you're going.
Yeah. And plenty of people have killed on a bad DeerCast day. You just you never know. There's always that aspect. You never know. But in general, like, I'd say it's a 90% plus percentage that this thing's going to be pretty accurate in predicting what your deer are going to do.
Well, and if you look at consistency, like you look at people that kill big deer like once in a while, or the people that kill big deer year after year, right? And on my farm, we took a deer almost every single year, and it was because I had it dialed down. I knew the spots to be in. I knew the days to go. I had the food in the right place. Like I knew I was, and really the cameras for me would tell me. If I went back to every deer I ever killed, and I went back to all the trail cam pictures, all of a sudden it'd be like, they're more visible for the 3, 4, 5 days leading up to it. And then boom, all of a sudden we got it done, where they might go all nighttime, whatever, where all of a sudden they show up in daylight, they're making mistakes. And then boom, you could almost book it based on those trail cameras and how much they're around. That the trail cameras and DeerCast to me are the two biggest tools you could ever use to be successful.
And more importantly, a cell camera.
Yes.
I mean, where you're an hour and a half from your house, hour and 20 minutes from your house there, the farm was, and same with when you're that far away, you kind of need that kind of intel to help you. And even then, doesn't mean you're going to kill that deer. Most of the times it doesn't, but it does tell you that they're in the area.
Yep. The biggest deer I killed on my farm and the most storied deer on my farm was Warning Track, and I missed him the year before. I've known him for 4 years. He's a 5-year-old buck. And I knew he lived in this field, but he also left about November 2nd, and he wouldn't come back until next spring or next summer. And we were getting close. I'd seen him the year before. I saw him 4 times. I missed him. And then the next year I hadn't seen him, but he's been on camera at night. And all of a sudden I got a trail cam picture about 10 minutes after dark, and he was on my scrape tree. And I texted my camera guy, said, he's about to mess up.
He's fixing to die.
We went up the next day. That was on the 30th maybe. So we missed Halloween, went up on November 1st. And we went up early, and I pulled that camera, and sure enough, he was on a doe. And so I knew if he was still on that doe, those does were coming to the food plot, we were going to have a crack. And sure enough, you know, if you get him on camera there at the scrape tree, he could have been in the field for 2 hours and you don't know it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
down there, just kind of taking his time. And so sure enough, next night he came out at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, something. Like, I mean, it was early.
Perfect.
Maybe it wasn't that early, but because the time hadn't switched yet. But it was early. I mean, we had like 3 hours of daylight. Came out on a doe, and we did it. If it wasn't for that picture, we had actually given up on him. We're hunting a different deer on the south part of the farm because he was more visible. That picture right there changed my whole philosophy. Went up and had the hunt of a lifetime and shot the biggest deer and most storied deer of the history of my farm.
Is that the one where you got the exit shot on Reconix camera where one of your deer?
That was later that year.
Was it late season?
That was the gun. That was the gun.
Yeah.
Shot. This is the one that he came up on a doe. He ran off and then came back out and shot him at 22 yards.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I'm glad I missed him a year before because he put on all kinds of mass and stickers. And,
he
he ended up being a 14 point instead of an 8 point, 9 point.
Was that the critical mass year that you won?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we should have said that in the intro. Winner of critical mass.
I think it kind of goes without saying.
Season 3?
People just know.
I think season 3.
Yeah. That was the best year. I harvested that buck, which was
not being biased, but that was the best year of the show.
Well, that was my best hunting year.
Crap.
I harvested that deer, which was that was my deer on the farm.
Yeah.
I mean, of the history of my farm, that there was one other deer that got close, but that was the one. Killed my other target buck with a gun. My son harvested a doe, and my daughter harvested her first buck. So it was
pretty special.
Yeah, it was the
and
best
she
year
was, it was adorable. Her reaction and, recovery and all that stuff. Those hunts with your kids were the best hunts.
They were
really.
good.
Yeah, they were.
Rhett's always got some good one-liners.
Oh, yeah. His heroes. He's a man when he's buying that deer, doe, buck, whatever. Yeah. He's got it all. He knows exactly what he's going to say.
He's been watching. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yep.
So, Kyle, in addition to the podcast and broadcasting and hunting, you also have a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing there with Brace for Impact.
Yeah. So Adam Wainwright kind of got us involved in this. 2014, took my wife and I to Haiti. On a trip there, we were looking to get involved and we wanted to be here in St. Louis, and just couldn't find our fit here in St. Louis. And talking through Adam, he said, "Hey, we're doing this stuff in Haiti." And so we went down and we were like, this is where we need to be. Knew it was the right thing. And so we locked in there with Adam and another partner. And so we started with the children's home. And now there's a school, there's a hospital. The kid grew up in our orphanage, became a doctor, runs this hospital. There's a vocational school, water and sanitation. They have a farm now. They're growing chickens.
What was it about Haiti that made you realize like this needs our focus?
It was the infrastructure was in place to be successful. So what I realized early on was I don't want to make all the decisions. I don't know. And I think this is where we would have messed up in St. Louis. I think we would have came in and said, this is what we want it to look like. This is what we want you to do. This is how you're going to do it. When we went to Haiti, 6 kids that grew up in an orphanage together all had this idea to do what people have done for them. And so they wanted to create this atmosphere for other people in their situation. They sit on the board. They call the shots. Good. And what I quickly learned is we could all, Matt maybe not included because he's been there, but we could all go jump on a plane, head down to Haiti, and you could all tell me what you think they need. And it wouldn't be right because you don't live in it. You don't know the situation. You don't know what they go through. Yeah. We tend to think so high level that we miss the very basic things that really they need first before they can get to the other things. And so I just knew that I could come in, we could fundraise, and then we had great partners that were trusted that could go do it. For me to go to a third world country and randomly find people that I trust, it would take so long. Sure. And this is already there, already in place. They're already, doing great things. So we just were able to enhance that along with Adam. And so it's exploded. I mean, they have had, since our first trip down there in 2014 to probably 4 years later, I mean, there's a lot going on, and they're able to manage it and do it well. 2 years into that, we said we need to come back to St. Louis. We've learned our lessons. We need to come here. So we found a great partner in St. Louis, and we're doing community development in North City, St. Louis, and same model. We have a great partner that we trust and support. It just looks different, right? So their needs here are different than the needs in Haiti. But we get to come in. We help our partner purchase and renovate homes that are in really bad condition, abandoned, which causes a lot of issues in the community. We rehab them, hire all local workers. So we hired 80% minority rate. So we're hiring people that live in and around the community, and so you get to be a part of this transformation. And then they place families in the home and surround them with a community coordinator that helps that family write a life plan for them and walk them through every step of the way to be successful.
Sure.
And the cool thing is we're to the point where we're getting those stories and those successes. You know, it takes a while, you know, so for 4 years, I'm like, I need you to donate again. And they're like, well, what's happening? I'm like, just bear with me. And then now it's to the point where we're cranking out success stories. And it's been a lot of fun to watch our partner there and his platform be elevated, and his leadership skills and the other things he's got going. He's got another project going, he calls it a community hub, where nonprofits come in there. Mercy has an urgent care in there. First time they've ever done it in the inner city. I mean, it's cool to see him thrive in this because, you know, it's now becoming a place that's attractive. People want to be a part of it because they're seeing the success.
And the ownership, I think what you guys learned in Haiti and brought into St. Louis, that the ownership of the community to do the work. And that's the big step and the big part of it. And you see, you know, we've been fortunate to be able to come to some of the galas that you guys put on, the fundraising things, and to see their stories and hear their stories in person. And, you know, they get up and speak some of the success stories, you know, a single mother, and she's not got a job, and she's, you know, they're paying their way, you know, to live in these homes that have been rehabbed. And it's pretty special. And the Haiti side is very special. I mean, it's unique, and there's a lot of needs. The very first time he told me about it, I said, hey, you know, I don't know what's outside of this area. You know what I mean? Like, especially don't know what's down in Haiti. I have no idea what's going on down there. And you said something about, you know, hey, you know, I was the same way, but you can't think locally. You need to think globally. And that struck a chord with me. And then Justin Lurk and I went down on a trip, a guy's trip down there, and did some work and got to experience it. And it was life-changing. And that's not a lie at all to say.
Well, what you realize is, and I think that's why I love that we have the international and local side, because I was the same way. I wanted to only do local. You know, I was like, I don't care about international. Like, we have problems here.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing I get. Well, I can answer that now because I was in your same boat, but I can tell you that people are people, right? And there's need everywhere. And I'm not criticizing anybody for helping anywhere. If you see a need and you feel compelled to go do it, go do it. Go help people. I don't care where they're from, whatever. People need help. And if you're passionate about it and you have the ability to do something about it, go do it. You know, doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter. Like, we get so focused on our county and our state and our country lines. You know, I'm a person of faith, and I think those lines are, you know, our Creator doesn't have those lines. You know, He doesn't see those lines. He sees people, and He needs people that have an influence and have the ability to go do that, to go do that and go help people. And at the end of the day, I don't want to have to answer for, you've been given a great position to where, you know, people of influence, you had a great career. What did you do with that? Yeah. You know, and so that's the one thing that drives me, is like, man, I want to use what I've been given and so fortunate to go do something for other people. And the Haiti thing's been, we've raised a lot of money for Haiti. I'll never be able to outgive what Haiti's given me. No matter, I don't care how much money we'll raise, you know, and it's made me a better husband, a better father, a better all around person, because when you get out of your comfort zone, you know, why don't people go? I'm comfortable. I don't want to go down there. I don't know. I got to get shots, and I got to do this, and I got to go. And it's like, man, once you go there and see it, and then what you do is you fall in love with the people, right? Like, those are amazing people that have a very limited future due to opportunity.
Yeah.
Due
And
to
it's not
things that
fair.
are out of their
It's not
control.
fair
They
to
have
them.
no
Nothing to
control
do with
over.
it. People say all the time, well, if you work harder, better things will come. That ain't
Not
the case.
down there.
There ain't nobody here that works harder than those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the difference is here, if you work hard and there's opportunity, there you work hard and you're just working hard.
You just
know?
survive.
Yeah. And that's the difference. And so I think from a life perspective, like everybody needs to doesn't have to go out of, go to a third world country, but put yourself in uncomfortable situations and watch yourself grow. Because if not, man, you're just kind of sitting in your own bubble and you're not getting better from it. And so it's been the charity side, like we've been able to raise a lot of money. We've been able to help a lot of people. We've also been able to bring a lot of people along with us. And the North City thing has given me a lot of opportunity to have a conversation with people everybody wants to tell me why people are in the situation they're in. And I'm like, okay, well, when's the last time? Well, I've never been down there. Well, okay, well, that's what you're saying isn't actually happening. And here's, some things that are happening. This is what, people are going through and how we can help. So it's just allowed for some great conversations, and I hope it challenges some people.
Definitely.
I'm not out to change people, but I'm out to just offer maybe a little perspective of, something that might think about and might think about things a little bit differently.
My buddy actually moved into one of those homes that was rehabbed down on Enright through Love the Lou and all, the work that they're doing down there. And it's been amazing to hear his perspectives change over time, having lived in and been embedded in that community, and just, some of the preconceptions that he had before moving down there. Now to hear him talk, just a totally different world.
And you can see why there's a long history of racial issues and mistrust as you start to learn a little bit more about it, which is one of the reasons that we have our partner that we support. For me to go in there and do it is a totally different deal than if we have a true partnership.
He's there in the community.
Yeah, he's there every day. He knows
helping people every day.
He knows the community. He knows their needs, and he knows how to address it. For us to come in, there's so much time of getting to know each other and building that trust.
It's relationship
So,
driven.
yeah, it's the same thing in Haiti, right? Like our Haitian people, they know the community, they know what the needs are, and they're able to address them. For us, it would take us 50 years to get to where we're at with
and
the
still
local
might
people.
not have it because there's so many you think I often think of government, like right now with Ukraine and how $40 million or $40 billion or $50 billion, and we're pledging this, and they're pledging money, billions of dollars nonstop to this, whatever the latest news cycle tragedy is. And you think about Haiti and the earthquakes, and they've been through it all. And every years later, you hear about all the corruption that was tied to, like in the 90s when, the Clinton Foundation, like
when you just throw money at something.
when you throw money at something, there's always parasites, piranhas that are going to go in there and just try to take advantage of it. And so then, when you go there, when we, was it Cap Haitian we fly into, and you go through that city to go to where we're going to the orphanage, they don't like white people, but
they're not sure why you're there,
Yeah. Well,
and
a
they're
lot
not,
of distrust there.
They're not directly benefiting from you being there. And so they're not sure why you're there. And then you're tied to all the other things. And that's the thing. Like we are tied to all of the long history of things that have happened, and until they get to know you and you get to know them. But now it's different when you go in our community. Right?
Oh, they love you.
Right.
Blanc.
Right.
it's awesome. The kids are running with the big truck we're driving.
Yeah, and they have toilets, they have water, they're getting medical care for free. They're coming to our school. And so they're benefiting from it. So then they know, that's that relationship. And then it's the long game, right? So those kids are going to go up through our school. We're building a high school right now because we got ninth graders right now starting 10th grade next year. And then they're going to go out in the community, and it's the long game. You can't do it. Money ain't going to fix it right away. You have to fix the infrastructure, and you have to address the basic needs so that people can continue to make progress.
And that's the correlation back home.
Yeah.
You got to start at the beginning, at the bottom.
Yeah.
And, they built a hospital, they built these schools, they built the orphanage itself. I mean, like the things down there, the campus it's campus at this point.
Yep.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. Tucked in the most beautiful setting you'd ever see. And after, I should have done this before we went down there, but after and getting to kind of see this for myself, I started doing more research on kind of the history. And it's talk about abuse of their people and the history behind it. It's horrible. Just go to Wikipedia and type in Haiti and go back, several hundred years and see what's happened to them.
They're the first country to win their freedom from slavery. And then the French
at a price
made them pay the equivalent of like $80 billion or something for loss of property.
Yeah. That they never could recover from.
They're still, they're still paying the debt of that, of, the people, or just the lack of infrastructure and all the, like, why do all these other Caribbean countries,
I was going to say,
have some
they're
success?
attached and they're on the same island as the Dominican.
Yeah.
You think of the Dominican, you're like, hey, I'm going to go to vacation there. This is going to be great. You don't think about that with Haiti.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's a shame because it's beautiful and you could do it, but there's just a lot of reasons, infrastructure being the main, that isn't there. But it's people ask all the time. They're like, well, how can you come down here with all the need? It's like, man, you keep your head down and just, you got to look, you can't fix everything. Right. So you create an environment. It's going to be good. We're starting to work on transitional housing for kids out of the orphanage. So it's not just, we're here until you're 18 and then that's great. You go on and we start the cycle over. It's like, we're committed to you for life. So we're going to put you in an apartment style building. You're going to pay rent. You're going to learn. We're going to bring in some other people from the outside community that can rent from there. So now you can learn to deal with people in the community. You've never had to do that. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to, so we're working on that plan. The last 2 years of high school, they'll go through as a class. And then, and our program manager who grew up in Haiti is a big part of that, of wanting to have that process. And so that those kids have the best chance to be successful.
Sure.
We've covered a lot of wide topics here. We've talked hunting, we've talked baseball, podcasts, nonprofit. I mean, we've been all over
the last Apple podcast review that we got last show. The guy specifically called out that he loves the fact we stay on topic.
Don't listen.
Sorry, Mike Huntston.
Hey, it is on topic. I touch a lot of different areas.
That's right.
I have a lot of different stuff going.
That's right. All right. Well, we've got a real wild clip this week, and I'm curious as you guys watch it. Would you shoot this deer? All
right. So real wild clip. It's something we're doing on social media. We show it on the podcast. We show this clip that we found. Usually Scott or somebody on the team finds it on social media, and then we comment on it, give our commentary.
This one is a DeerCast, Jim. I don't know this one has seen the light of day on social anywhere. We pulled it from the bottom of the barrel inside DeerCast.
The belly of the beast.
The double B.
Okay. So play the clip there, Alan. All right. So what are we looking at here?
It looks like iPhone footage from a guy. It's ground level in the woods, and something white is in. Oh my goodness! It's an albino buck.
He just cussed.
He just said a curse word, but he whispered it.
That's okay then. This
deer's probably at 15 yards.
It's a nice deer too.
It really is.
It's a real nice deer. Kind of a chocolate rack.
And he's completely broadside. Definitely a mature buck. He's got a brisket on him.
So the question is, would you said that? Would you shoot an albino buck?
I appreciate you reiterating the question.
Listen, I would not. I don't think I could. That's just me. I mean, that's a trophy, no doubt, an awesome trophy. But I would not care to shoot it, honestly.
I would have to text my buddy, who's a game warden, and see if you can shoot it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, in Illinois, you cannot. I know albino. At least last I checked, you cannot. In Missouri, albinos are fair game.
Racist.
Big time. but it's hard to tell sometimes. An animal could be a piebald, but still predominantly white, and so you really got to watch it. My guess is that this guy was in a state where it is illegal to shoot an albino animal.
I mean, it's amazing to see this deer.
That's crazy, and but you have to know that that's possibly illegal. Like for him to like. You got to be educated on that.
Here's
it's not something you run into every day.
If you shoot it, like I know there's a guy, I think it was Cape Girardeau. There was like almost kind of like that area down there in southeast Missouri. There was like a famous albino deer down there because a lot of people, I mean, obviously it stands out. So a lot of people would see it from the side of the road or neighborhoods or whatever. And a guy shot it and legally shot it. And I mean, people went nuts over that. They did not like that. And you got to think about it like, not only now you're opening up yourself to a bunch of non-hunters too, because people.
How could you shoot such a beautiful animal?
Yeah, we get that anyways.
Yeah, right.
But
that's
now
no different than any other harvest.
You see an albino one, and you're like, oh, it's really rare.
It's even more beautiful.
But
and I see a rack like that too. I mean, that's a
probably 150-inch type deer.
Good rack.
So I wouldn't shoot it from a standpoint. I'm not worried about taking heat about it. I just wouldn't care. I'd like to see it on my property,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it on my wall.
I have a buddy that's a Missouri game warden. I text him all the time, because with being on Drury's, like everything's by the book, and you're like, you got to check everything. So I've always thought about that, like a turkey or a deer, like. And sometimes the laws change by the year and you don't know it.
Oh yeah.
So you better stay up on it, something like that, and make sure before you do it, because it's probably got a tracker on it, so they're gonna know.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it was interesting. I was reading up on this years ago from the Missouri Department of Conservation's perspective, and this could have changed. But essentially, they were kind of poking fun at other game departments in other states, saying it's a genetic abnormality. There's nothing.
Right.
It's not like the white buffalo that comes along once every 100 years.
It's not a rare animal in their eyes because of the genetics of it.
Well, biologically, it is rare, but biologically speaking, it's inconsequential. So it doesn't have
not doing any damage.
Genes for melanin or whatever. Whatever. So, but it was interesting to hear their perspective because they were just like, "What's the big deal? It's a different color.
It seems like a big deal."
If it was legal, I would shoot it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You?
Oh yeah.
Look at you.
100%.
Oh, you also bow hunt turkeys. I'm not surprised.
And I shoot fish. We're about to that time of year. The river goes down. We're going to start doing some bow fishing.
I don't know if it's going to go down anytime soon.
So we've got a lot of rain.
We may be launching in someone's cornfield with a boat.
Glad I don't own a river farm this year.
That's true.
We could end up with some more real wild clips, though. Deer swimming around.
That's right.
Okay, how about our question of the day?
All right, the question of the day is proudly brought to you by Tenzing. Go further, hunt longer.
Hi, my name is Justin McCormick. I live in Clark County, Indiana. And I was curious, how many times have you guys had a big buck show up on your trail cameras during the beginning of season, and then next thing you know, he disappears and doesn't show up on your cameras another month and a half, or maybe even 2 months, and then he's back on your camera, and the entire time you think, well, he must have got shot or hit by a vehicle or a poacher.
There he was, gone.
Well, listen, that happens a lot, honestly.
All the time. For me, especially in velvet, like I'll get great velvet pictures of like 6 shooters, and then I've learned over the years, like, okay, well, I wonder which of the 6 is going to stay.
2 will maybe stay.
Yeah, and then it's usually 1, maybe 2, and you get them for a little bit, and then they're in and out, and but usually when you lose one, you pick another one up shortly after. It's just funny how that, at least in my experience, but I've gotten some of my biggest deers in velvet, and you're like, all right, sweet, and then you're hoping late season maybe they'll come back, and sometimes they do. Sometimes those real cold days in January, you'll get them to come back, but every year it happens to me.
Same here.
Mark talks about that a lot in summer. He's so good at dialing in on when they come back and knowing a deer's history. So he puts that, puzzle together, and he's like, all right, the last 2 years, he left on October 2nd. And it's amazing, but it happens a lot. They have a pattern.
True, yeah.
Yeah. They have they're very patternable in that way. And it happens, I think everybody, we get questions like that all the time. I got this one picture of this deer. Every year I get this picture of this deer about this time, whether it's the rut or whatever, but they change their home range. They change where their home is during certain parts of the year.
And by miles.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy when you see 10 miles away, you hear of a deer that was summering here and 10 miles away and harvested on a farm there.
We had a pretty big deer on a piece that we were hunting last year, and we had him, and it would have been my best buck ever. Big deer. And we had him all the way up through October. And then right around the rut, he skedaddled. Well, neighbor a couple miles to the northeast got pictures of him. And I'm shitting a brick. I'm like, oh man, you get so attached to these deer, you chase them. So, you're thinking I'm going to have a shot at them. And the reality is they aren't yours, they can go anywhere. And he did. And sure enough, he came. Craziest thing, this deer, somebody, a different neighbor, somebody in the area killed a buck, looked just like him. Same splits, characteristics. I'm like, great. He got killed during gun season, shocker. And we really started studying, and the whole group, we were like, man, I don't think that's that deer. And sure enough, he showed back up on camera, and he made it back to our farm. And it was kind of right after the rut, kind of towards the tail end of gun season, and he disappeared again. Nobody's heard of him getting shot. We're making plans to try to capitalize on him being there in the early season in the area he was in. We're hopeful he shows back up this year, but you just never know.
Yeah.
I mean, you just never know.
Well, and I mean, get hit by a car,
Yeah.
EHD, just normal stuff that deer go through. And,
Yeah, they're out in the wild.
I mean, there's just no telling. But it is when I remember warning track, the one I was telling you about, when I put my cameras out, I had him, and then he left. And then I put my cameras on. The very first picture I had was him, and I was like, yes, he's back.
It's an amazing feeling.
I got a chance. Yep. Yeah, he made it
So
through,
you're
and he looks
saying there's a
healthy. And
chance.
yep.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And Mark, the deer disappearing act, the big deer he killed,
Yeah.
the 2,
Yeah.
15, 16, whatever, 14, whatever it was. He that was his whole story. Disappear at the same times. And this year or this past fall, it changed a little bit. And Mark, you better not mess up. He's going to
He'll be-
capitalize off of it.
He'll be there 2 minutes before you show up. He'll be there.
Who is this guy?
Sometimes this kind of works to your benefit. Like I've seen a couple like big deer show up late season. I have not seen all year.
Yeah.
They just happen to pop up like after Christmas and like, oh, there's still hope for my season here.
Yeah.
In my farm, December is the best month. January, December, you get those cold days because we leave a bunch of food. And so to me, I kind of play to that. Like something new might show up usually it's after the rut. When they get back to food is when I start to really pick up.
And your strategy there is it's not like it's a huge piece, but your strategy with the food and nobody around you really has anything left at that point. It's like, all right, suck them in.
And it works, but you got to have the weather.
Yeah.
Got to have the
Yeah.
weather.
Got to be cold.
And that's the last couple of years. That's been a
Tough.
tough one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move it on to the wildlife word. It's brought to you by Sportsman Channel, your home for Winchester and Drury's natural born and everything red, wild, and blue.
Have your mind blown here in a second, Kyle.
Okay.
Whitetail eyeball physiology.
Hope you're smarter than me.
The tapetum lucidum is a reflective layer in a whitetail's retina. It doubles the amount of light their eyes interpret, which allows them to A, temporarily pause an image, B, rewind their vision by 1 second,
Sweet.
C, 18 times better at night than humans.
Now that's got to be the case. Because you imagine these deer running through the woods at night. You're like, how many branches would you just, get smacked
to
by?
the
And they're
face.
just like, boop, right through. No big deal.
Or D, perceive the presence of dark matter.
You get to go first. We always let the guests go first.
I'm going C.
He's going C, folks.
They don't get hit in the face with branches.
This is a big
It's
thing
science, people.
for you. You never see a deer swearing in the woods about
No.
a branch that smacked him in
No,
the
they're
face.
running full speed. They're just like, boop, 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 moving. I'm like, how do they do that?
It is pretty amazing.
Maybe it's because they're pausing their.
That could be.
the
Rewinding it by a second.
I thought when you started to read this, that first hard word you read there, it looks like taped them.
Nearly killed him.
That's what I was going to say. Taped them. Nearly killed them.
You should have.
Yeah, sure. See, what the hell? 18 times seems like a lot of times, but they do have really good night vision.
That's why they're not getting smacked in the face by branches at
Yeah.
nighttime.
And if I had twice as good vision, I'd still get smacked. So it's going to have to be 18.
That is true. And that's why they're considered crepuscular animals. They are more active at those twilight periods because
we're
their
right?
vision is so much. You are right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle's like, you just get to the point here. We're right, right? We win.
I'm right. Did I win? What do I win?
A hat.
A DOD
You're
hat.
wearing it.
Oh,
Lucky
congratulations
dog.
Thanks.
in advance.
Who is the sponsor of that? Sportsman's Channel?
Sportsman
I
Channel.
get my own
Yeah.
30-minute show.
Sure, everybody, anybody, join the club. Who doesn't have their own 30-minute show?
All right, well, we got some shout
I
outs.
know several people trying to get their own right now.
We've got another 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, which is awesome. Like, take a second, go over to Apple Podcasts and rate. You can actually rate us within the Apple Podcast player.
Kyle, these are the things as now a podcast
That are
host
important?
that are important. Let me tell you, 5-star reviews. Telling
Am I a
people to
podcaster
go,
now?
You're a podcaster.
May 31st, I guess.
Welcome to the shitty club.
Hit the subscribe button.
You mentioned earlier doing all these interviews with the guys before. Did anyone ever ask, like, hey, where's this going? Are you recording this?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did ask you.
No. they haven't.
If you were just doing these interviews with
No,
people.
I told them it was the podcast.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so they knew.
They're probably thinking it's already out.
Is this a thing?
Yeah, great. I love podcasts. We get it all the time. Yeah. I love doing podcasts.
When I had my podcast,
I've never listened
people
to
would tell
podcasts.
me they loved watching my podcast and it was just an audio show.
So you knew they were lying.
what?
We are doing video though.
What are
you
you
can watch
watching?
ours on YouTube.
That's
Sweet.
key.
You're going to have
That's
to dress
key.
up.
In this day and age, you got to have video.
Why wouldn't? I mean, if you're going to get Albert Pujols in studio, would you not film it? I mean,
Be
come on.
foolish not
I'd
to.
film it. Yep.
Yep.
The Mo Bow Hunter 1 says, good, clean fun. Way to bring some fun and laughter to something many of us take so seriously. You have a good variety of special guests, and your shows are easy to follow and listen to. Keep up the good work.
I'm not even lying. Right before you started reading that,
Uh-huh.
you ended with, I'd film it. I almost put, that's what she said, but you didn't give me enough time. And then this guy's talking about
clean
good
fun. Come on.
Sorry,
I'd film
Mobo Hunter 1. I'm a child.
We stepped on it.
And
And I'm a big boy.
I'm both.
Big boy
Did you
child.
record your own?
Sound
bites?
they pulled that one from a show.
Oh.
Yeah, no, a lot of these, I mean,
Huge.
Terry. Terry.
Got him.
Terry.
$200 is $200.
John Odell, that's one of our favorites. I mean, we got all kinds of.
I can't read.
That's Mark. We got a lot of good ones.
You've only played yours though.
Well, I just
You
played.
just like your voice.
You suck, Matt.
There you go.
There.
It's another favorite. It's a fan
Well,
favorite.
believe me, I've been accused of the other as well.
All right.
All right. And you could join the Rack Pack if you wanted to.
All right.
We would let you in. So
What do I have to do?
I love your non-committal response.
What
Silence.
does that mean?
That's a good idea, Tim.
Okay,
Let's
so-
talk afterwards.
So the Rack Pack and Facebook, we have a private Facebook group.
Okay.
And listeners of this podcast, Terry named them the Rack Pack. And so we got a private Facebook group. You just go type in 100% Wild Rack Pack and you can join the club. And it's basically a bunch of outdoorsmen just kind of shooting the breeze in a private Facebook group.
Yeah, it's cool when people share some of their hero
Success
pictures and
Ask
and stuff on the
questions,
field.
you know, that
So
other.
it's DeerCast on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, much smaller.
And sometimes we put some exclusive content that we wouldn't air on the podcast into the Rack Pack.
But just because of this and these questions, we're going to film something exclusively at the end of this podcast with you
Oh,
to
boy.
put into the Rack Pack.
Wow.
So
Say
that means
goodbye
I have to
career.
be a part of the Rack Pack.
No, you don't.
Oh, okay.
God dang it, Kyle. Ruining this.
We do have some new Rack Pack
Well, okay,
members.
so he lists out the names. I read them. I butcher them. He puts in a fake name and trips me up somewhere along the way. So that's part of the fun too.
Gotcha.
All right, we got Justin Bruns, Jason Albertus, Damon Spurgeon. He's a fish. Jason Carson.
You mean sturgeon, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what she said. Jason Carson, Hammerpain. Now that's a name.
Do.
Dale Beatty. Dale finally joined. He was actually on the podcast once.
Dale
Beatty?
was invited to the group.
Yeah. Oh, we forced him in. Ralph Duran and Conrad Bain. Ooh, that's like a evil
fancy.
villain name. Conrad Bain.
Conrad Bain.
I don't know which one was the fake
One's
one.
fake. Guaranteed
One's
one
fake.
fake.
Yeah, you gotta guess, Kyle.
Hammer Pain.
Hammer Pain is a real individual, lives in Texas.
Really?
He is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one of your friends.
I know of him. Not met him.
A name like that, a lot of people probably do.
Conrad Bain was the actor who played Mr. Drummond in the TV sitcom Different Strokes.
Old Conrady. That was a fake one. Are you glad you did the podcast
Oh
with
yeah,
us?
it's great.
You want to see how to be successful? Just don't do this.
Yep. Invert it. You're good.
What are your numbers?
We'll talk after the podcast.
Okay.
They're big, huge.
Big numbers?
They're huge numbers.
I'll bore you.
We've been in several top 10 lists. I'll
right.
tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll tease
Top 10 of what?
internet.
Does it matter?
Internet lists. It'll be
Then we
huge.
published. I did an article on DeerCast Top 10 Hunting Podcasts.
We were number one.
Imagine that.
We were number 1, 2, and 3.
So I wonder if our first week of the Cardinals podcast.
Oh, you'll outdo
we'll
this.
upstage
It's not
you.
even fair because
upstage you.
you have Major League Baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals pushing your crap. We can't hardly get Taylor and the team to say squat about ours. I mean, we had to invent whole new things inside the show just to try to get on the internet.
You do have a better set than we do, though.
Boom.
You have a very
Take
good
that.
set.
Our icon was almost a salmon jumping up a waterfall. We are swimming upstream all the way.
I got
Get
you.
it?
Like the
Deep
sturgeon.
Yeah, like the sturgeon.
Ah,
I love
shit.
catching
Now
like
I see.
sturgeon.
I see where I messed up there.
You're like,
His name was Spurgeon.
That's exactly what I said.
It's like sturgeon. That's what I said. Sturgeon.
Oh, would have been a good one for Kevin Van Dam. All right, Kyle. Well,
It has been fun.
We'll be sure to tune into Chatter's Box. I'm looking forward to it.
I love the logo. Bad
cool.
to the bone.
Matt had a little influence on that.
Nice.
Oh, I didn't mean that's why I loved it.
Speaking of logos behind us, we continue to tease a little bit.
Yeah. We're talking about, we teased it in the Kevin Van Dam episode last week. Kyle actually knows what we're talking about. We're getting ready to launch a new version of DeerCast, and we got some major new features. Kyle's been able to see some of this stuff and test it out. We're really, really excited about it.
Supercharged.
Yep. Supercharged. DeerCast on steroids.
Yep.
So coming
like it.
soon.
I like it.
All right, brother. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. You guys have done 270 of these. I'm glad I finally got the invite.
Well, listen,
been a while.
The old set wasn't exciting to be on. I was kind of ashamed of it. So now we have a real setup, and I'm trying to get everybody to come in.
What's the old saying? Lipstick on a pig.
There you go.
I think that's what we've done here.
We got a new pig. Oh, oink, oink.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Until next time, peace out.
The results are in.
DeerCast said great.
It doesn't exist anywhere else but in DeerCast.
Hunters love DeerCast's exclusive deer movement forecast. Get ahead of your game with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.